Joining us right now is the Director of Communications for CatholicVote.org, is Joshua Mercer. Good morning to you, Joshua.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, praise be to God. Glad to see you back on the program. Looks like you're enjoying the good and the beautiful censorship from big tech oligarchs these days. Tell us what happened on TikTok.
Well, I mean, TikTok is this crazy social media platform, extremely popular with the youth in this country. I mean, in many ways, I think it's a waste of time. I don't let my children go on TikTok.
Thanks be to God.
And so then you might ask, well, why would Catholic Vote be on TikTok? It's like, well, we have a mission of evangelization.
Right.
And we want to let people know what's going on in the world. And we go to where people are and we give them the message. And in this time, we went to TikTok and we let people know about the horrible stuff that, you know, some of these LGBT books that are absolutely inappropriate for anyone under the age of 18, but we find them in our libraries, we find them in our schools. And so our intern, Ethan Potter, he said, I'm going to get on there and I'm just going to read this book and tell people what's going on in this book. And it's extremely profane. And we warn people, like, listen, if you don't want to listen to this, don't click it. But we just want to get the word out there and let people know this is the kind of stuff that they're teaching our children in our schools. This is the kind of stuff that they're making available to kids in our schools under the age of 18. It's about a 10-year-old learning about his, identities. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to get into the details on this radio program, but you can find out about this information on our website, CatholicVote.org. And so what happens, right? TikTok censors this. They flagged a video back in June when we did this, and they flagged another video as well when we're trying to expose what's going on. And then we got a notice on Monday they're shutting us down, permanently banning us.
Right.
And they cited it hateful. And I'm just it kind of blows my mind. It's like if other organizations were to share this same kind of content, they would share it glowingly, right? And TikTok would have no problem with it. But they say it's bad and we can't share it on our platform because we're critical of it. And the point I make is if this stuff is unacceptable, if this stuff shouldn't be shared, then our kids shouldn't have access to it either.
You know, it's interesting. Back in 2014, I wrote a book on overcoming pornography addiction. I'd been featured in Delivered, edited by Matt Fradd and Catholic Answers at the time. And so I thought I could share my story that way, but what if I could actually help men do what needs to get done to be free from pornography? And so I wrote a book about it, and I thought I would naively just promote this on social media. This would be great. I'll help a lot of men this way. And I actually paid to run ads. And Facebook told me I was a bigot. Facebook told me I was hateful and casting judgment upon other people for daring to suggest that pornography was a problem. And they refused to let me run the ads. And I just remember feeling very naive about all of that. Like, why didn't I see that coming? But that was 2014.
To understand how much pornography fuels the ad campaigns of some of these social media companies anyway. That's exactly. And TikTok, I mean, is sort of like the worst in that sense. And also, I think TikTok, people don't understand that there's a major stakeholdership in TikTok by the Chinese Communist government. Right. I mean, they don't quote directly own it. There's a company in China that they work with directly hand in hand that owns it. And it's powerful stuff. And in fact, they don't allow that kind of stuff for their people. Like the Chinese version of TikTok, that was what Joe Rogan was saying. It's a lot cleaner. It's a lot better. It's a focus on, aspirational stuff, science, and, learning, that kind of stuff. But in this country, it's just a mud bath.
Because they recognize that this type of filth is a type of a weapon that can destroy and undermine society. Yeah. So they are happy to allow the filth to reign in our neck of the woods and prevent it for their own citizens because they recognize how dangerous it is. For years, I remember E. Michael Lofton was talking about how the Israelis would use pornography as a weapon against the Palestinians. And there are lots of reports on that. So
well, it happened as well with Russia too.
Right. Not surprised.
Communist Russia did that against us for many years.
Not surprised. Now, we attempted TikTok for a while. I think it was the dancing choreography that, to be honest, got us. We did try, but we're just not very coordinated people. So
we forgot. Somebody pointed out to us we have to bow our head when we dab. We didn't do that.
Yeah. So we were getting called out.
We never took off. And but no, we were on there trying to do the same thing that Catholic Vote was doing. Was just to get our show out there, and kind of talk about cultural things that were taking place, rather, and headlines and that sort of thing. And I noticed that there were certain things, if I did a video on, they would not take off, versus if I did a video on somebody holding their breath while they're taking a photo during the height of the pandemic, that took off, which was interesting to me.
Yeah.
But, these places they're a bastion for these people. And when you go on there, it's funny, back in the day, being countercultural meant something else. It kind of looked like what they're doing now. But now to be countercultural,
you got to participate with the man. Now you have to work with the man to get any kind of say in the public square. Also, similarly, on my YouTube channel, if I talk about Bishop Barron or Shia LaBeouf, 100,000 views. No problem. Here you go. Enjoy. If I talk about whether or not it is a sin to not get the vaccination, as some bishops seem to suggest, I get striked. I've just got to notice that you can't talk about this. You're not allowed. We have deleted this content. We're taking it off. You are spreading misinformation and confusing the community. I mean, we live in a day and an age where we are not allowed to talk about the things on social media, big tech platform, that are of consequence, that really ought to be talked about. What are the alternatives, Joshua Mercer?
Well, so here's the thing, Joe. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely correct, that sometimes there's the public screening, like where YouTube will shut you out from saying something, or TikTok banned us here, That's the stuff that's more public face and noticeable. I also want to just let listeners know, in fact, there's another form of censorship that you might not even see. Like, there's banks that refuse to do business with us. Like, we can't even open up an account. And we're like, wait, what? Like, no one's going to know we have a checking account with you. What's the problem? But they don't like our political views. Right. And they say no. And so we're seeing some of that stuff. I mean, it's not just New York saying no to the NRA and try to shut them down. So that stuff happens. Even pro-family groups have problems with that kind of stuff. I'm the guy who ends up having to do a lot of paperwork on that. But it is a form of censorship, and it's somewhat hidden. I think that's why it's so critical to have Catholic radio, to have resources like Catholic Vote does with both our website, CatholicVote.org, and our daily email called The Loop. And even sometimes that we get Gmail giving us issues and stuff like that. But I feel like you need to support the organization. If you support Catholic Radio, make sure you give every month and listen to it. And your favorite podcast, your favorite. I hope you like Catholic Vote's email too, The Loop.
Oh, we do.
Make sure that you keep a connection with these organizations and like Catholic Radio and these institutions. You financially support them, and then you follow them on as many channels as possible. And I know the guys here on this radio show are bold, and they're going to say what they want to say, and they're not going to have the fear of these tech censorships, and neither do we at Catholic Vote. We're going to talk, we're going to tweet like we're ready to be banned at any moment.
Amen. Hold that thought, Joshua Mercer.
We don't fear social media.
Amen. I was reading your press release here. It does seem like you think that there's something to that. Do you think they're going to put a hammer on a lot of people in the run-up here in the last couple of months?
Well, I know that as we get closer to elections, especially like conservative organizations, they mention the fact that email delivery becomes much more difficult. There are sometimes they'll ban you from YouTube and other platforms. So that kind of stuff, especially as more people are tuning in. I mean, from Labor Day to Election Day, this is the prime time for election season, where people are more engaged, paying more attention as we get closer to the results. So, yeah, the social media companies, the tech companies, that's when they unfortunately dial it up. We've been dealing with issues with Facebook the last 2 weeks. We think we got it solved, but again, it's a never-ending battle. And as we get closer to decision time, when more people want to pay attention, that's when they want to shut them down the most. So,
I was just thinking, I had a friend over at Fusati, which is a marketing firm owned and operated by Catholics. And when Ireland was going through their abortion referendum, the pro-life side hired Fusati to help them manage their Facebook accounts, to help get ads out to make sure the vote was people were getting out to vote, et cetera, et cetera. The opposition found out that Fusati was an American-based company, and they basically had them kicked out of the country.
Right.
You know, and that's the kind of stuff that we have to deal with. The rules seem to be unfairly applied. Only one side is allowed to have that public square voice. As we were talking about in the last segment, you know, we've seen lots of strikes here at Catholic Drive Time in particular. You have as well. And I'm so grateful that radio is a medium that we are allowed to have conversations of consequence on. We are allowed to talk about things on radio that the big tech oligarchs simply won't allow us to have. But what saddens me, though, Josh, is, let's just be honest, most people are moving away from the old school radio technology. They are embracing every convenience that our phones provide us. I'm no different. I do the same thing. And yet, that is a strategy that's not going to help us reach the masses. It's quite the opposite. I almost see a day in an age where we're going to have to go back to small-time printing presses in our garages and passing out pamphlets. How do you see the next 10 years?
You know, honestly, Joe, Catholic Vote, even, you know, we started as an internet-based, you know, advocacy organization. The internet was absolutely integral to everything we do. Our website, email, we're one of the pioneers on YouTube. Like our video on YouTube we did in 2008. I mean, YouTube was only started in 2005, just to give you an idea. We were like one of the first groups to really embrace that technology. Our video got 3 million views back in 2008. I mean, that was just
huge,
unheard of, right? So we were born in that environment. We reach out to all these different channels, but we have a holistic approach, right? So even on the internet, email is considered old school, right? But that's our bread and butter with our daily email at the loop. But that's not it. We do texting. So we get messages out through texting. You know what you're saying? That it's a little bit easier to get around the social media companies that way. We can directly send a video to somebody. Mm-hmm. We also, though, yes, we even go oldest of old schools, Joe. We print out newspapers in areas and let people know what's going on. In other words, we don't use an ad in the Minneapolis Star Tribune, for example. We will print out a newspaper in Minneapolis in certain areas and let people know the issues that are going on. So everything we do is with the same understanding that you guys have. We don't complain about the media. We are the media. Be the media. Mm-hmm. So we are the way to communicate with our audience. We don't want a filter of TikTok. We don't want YouTube filter. We want to go around people as much as we can, go directly to them and let them know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's
why I think Catholic radio is absolutely important.
Amen. I agree. It's important for us to stay connected to those organizations that are going to provide us this information. And because the other thing is, like, there's not, I think of my experience last 20 years working in Catholic nonprofit work and having to fundraise, and you're speaking to people of great capacity. And you're like, golly gee whiz, would you help support us? And how hard that is sometimes to actually get that support. We live off the back of the widow's mite and the many thousands of Catholic radio listeners here. But in thinking about the larger capacity donors, they'll donate to things like schools, the diocesan endeavors, the Catholic charities. These are all good things, but who's going to come together and provide a data server farm for Catholic organizations like us to protect us for when that lobbyist calls and tries to apply intimidation and pressure upon us? Because one phone call from somebody like that to your email service provider could delete your account. And they may not even give you your emails as backup. I mean, think about that. We are living on a thread, and our ability to reach the masses at a time where it's most critical is pretty fragile at times. Go ahead.
You bring up a very good point, and I would like to just let you know, and also your listeners, that there are alternative institutions that are being created, even behind the scenes. So there's now like a Catholic guy I know, he's a really good guy. I'm forgetting the name of his company, but he's running a merchant account, so a credit card account. So you don't have to worry, because we dealt with that. We had a merchant services account. Your listeners are like, what is this? I don't understand. As a Catholic radio, if they want to accept credit card donations, or Catholic Vote wants to accept credit card donations, you need to have a merchant account set up, right? It's kind of like the behind the scenes stuff, that basic business operations you need. And we got shut out on one of those. So we went to another one. They're both, one was secular, the other was secular. But now we have a Catholic guy who started it and says, listen, I'm not going to shut you out if you're Catholic. I'm not going to shut you out if you're pro-life. We're going to keep going. Now, you might still deal with issues that, like with Visa, if Visa still gives you an end run, that might, you still got that problem. But a lot, there's some of that great stuff happening, really, really good stuff happening behind the scenes. We're starting to create alternative infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Obviously, big tech is massive, but it's just the way I look at it. It's like water downhill. We're going to find one way or another to get our message out through God's grace. We're not going to let these guys stop us.
Amen, Mr. Mercer. I was thinking about just what you were saying right now. There's a temptation, right, for people to say, "Oh, we'll just do it our own way," and then they look at it, and it's a David and Goliath moment. They're looking at YouTube, for example, and they forget that for YouTube to get where it was today, it took several years, and they get discouraged. They don't start anything. So I'm glad to hear that there are Catholics out there who are taking the initiative to start merchant services accounts, maybe to go and start server farms and all of those different things that we need, so that the infrastructure that we need, so that we can continue to get the word out. I know it's discouraging to look at these giant corporations and say, well, there's no way that we'll ever compete against them. It just discourages them from trying, and I think we need to get out of that mindset.
Well, and we're also saying, I do think we can apply some political pressure here, because if, for example, Republicans take the House in the November elections, which I think is a very good possibility, then we're certainly going to be among the voices when the new Congress is sworn in January that say, it's time to have hearings on this stuff. Get the investigative power of congressional hearings and bring some of these tech guys before them and make them squirm. I mean, it does make a difference. Facebook has reached out to conservative organizations and Republican-leaning organizations and pro-life groups and kind of backed down a little bit and said, listen, if you get some stuff, if you get some setbacks, come talk to us, and we'll try to correct some of that, because they realized, at the end of the day, they would lose a lot of money and they would lose an audience. But, it would be worth it, like to have congressional hearings and say, listen, you set yourself up as a platform. You're not a publisher. You're not like the Washington Post, where you pick and choose what you decide to, and filter what you decide people to see, which is fine if you're the Washington Post, if you're a newspaper kind of thing. But if you're a platform where you say anyone can come on here and post a video or can share a photo, then all of a sudden you're saying, well, wait a minute now, this advocacy organization over here can't post photos. It's like, well, wait, we can't post photos. Is it obscenity? Is it violent? No. We just disagree with your views. Like, well, then you're not a platform. You're a publisher, and that's censorship. And we definitely need to raise up our voices and say, we have a Bill of Rights still.
Now, we have just a couple minutes left with Joshua Mercer, but let me push back just a little bit here. We saw Josh Hawley have some wonderful moments of making Zuckerberg squirm in his seat, and I gave God praise for that. That was enjoyable. I enjoyed that. But that and a nickel has gotten us nowhere. They can have some of these incredible encounters, but at the same time, Facebook is still notorious for its censorship. They actually will block images of holy images, and they'll put content warnings on top so you can't see them. So I think you have to put more teeth to this.
We still get monkey business from them. I'm not saying that they've had this conversion necessarily. I'm just saying that they felt some of the heat, and so then they started to back down from some of the more egregious stuff. What you said is still unacceptable. But my point is,
I guess my last question is,
they realized they needed to back away a little bit.
Let me get this in before we run out of time. Do you think we ought to remove their protections from lawsuits in the next, if the conservatives take back the House and the Senate, you think they should remove their protections from lawsuits?
Well, that unfortunately is not going to happen until you have a president who would be willing to sign such a legislation into law, and so that's not going to happen for another 3 years. But I do think they should have hearings on this kind of stuff, and you can certainly use the subpoena power and get documents from their company and make them really squirm. And so you can change their behavior in the next 2 years here through congressional actions and hearings and stuff like that. So we can snap them into shape a little bit.
And we've seen that recently, a new trend. You can subpoena people and then throw them in jail if they don't show up. So I guess that's a good thing. We're about to find out whether or not.
Crazy times, right?
Crazy times we live in. Let me just encourage you to get on the Daily Loop. We use it every single day. We get the Daily Loop in our inbox, and it's a great tool to keep us informed and figuring out what stories are of greater consequence for you. So you can go to CatholicVote.org and get signed up today. Let me encourage you to do that if you're not already on it. Joshua Mercer, God bless you, my friend. Thanks for being on with us.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah, praise be to God. And God bless you, E. Michael Jones and Michael Lofton. Sorry for conflating you two earlier. Hey, if you could join us in the next hour, Hector Molina is going to be our guest. Talk about the Sunday Gospel. Join us at grnonline.com/CDT.